Well, welcome to the 700 Club, a game changer for Israel. The Trump administration is reversing a call that Israelis are describing as a major milestone for the Jewish nation. What is it? And why is the president saying that this change in policy is righting a historical wrong? Gary Lane has the answers.
Secretary of State Mike Pompeo announced Monday that the Trump administration is taking another bold step by reversing the Obama administration's policy on Israeli settlements.
After carefully studying all sides of the legal debate, this administration agrees with President Reagan. The establishment of Israeli civilian settlements in the West Bank is not, per se, inconsistent with international law.
The Israeli settlements in the West Bank, the biblical areas of Judea and Samaria, are actually towns and small cities, some with tens of thousands of residents. President Obama believed the settlements were illegal under international law, so his policy at the UN and in Washington was to prevent new construction.
Settlements have to be stopped in order for us to move forward.
But Pompeo says that simply hasn't been successful.
Calling the establishment of civilian settlements inconsistent with international law hasn't worked. It hasn't advanced the cause of peace.
Israelis were elated at the news. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu praised the decision, calling it a historic day for Israel.
After President Trump recognized Jerusalem as the capital of Israel and recognized our sovereignty over the Golan Heights, now the American administration put an end to the lie that settlements are illegal. I thank President Trump and I thank Secretary of State Pompeo.
The Palestinian Authority called it a total departure from solving conflict by peaceful means.
They are replacing international law with the law of the jungle.
In January 2017, the United Nations Security Council passed a resolution declaring all of Judea and Samaria occupied territory. On the CBN News Channel program Faith Nation, State Department spokesperson Morgan Ortagus says the U.S. is responding to the UN's bias against Israel.
Anytime you leave it up to international bodies or leave it to the world to decide the legal fate of Israel, they continually try and isolate and discriminate against Israel, and we here in the United States will not stand for that policy.
Gary Lane, CBN News.
I personally applaud that decision. I've been to Ariel. It is a thriving city. They have a university that has several thousand students. They are doing advanced work in cybersecurity. It is amazing how many businesses are being formed in Ariel. And to call it a settlement is nonsense. It's a thriving city. And other cities in the West Bank are the same thing. And I think the Obama administration followed the UN line, which was dominated by the Arab countries. And I think it's time for the president's decision to be applauded and to say Judea and Samaria are part of historical Israel, and to claim that that's, quote, occupied territory is nonsense. So my hat's off to the State Department, Mike Pompeo, and the president. Well, in other news, the never-ending impeachment saga drags on. Now Republicans hope to tell their side of the story. John Jessup has more from Washington.
That's right, Pat. Democrats are pushing ahead in their impeachment case against the president again today, with two witnesses who listened to President Trump's call with Ukraine scheduled to testify. Republicans today able to offer differing points of views as the hearings go on.
What will happen as finally we are able to get some witnesses is the other side of the story. And we'll see how that unfolds.
President Trump says he is strongly considering testifying in the impeachment probe after an informal offer from House Speaker Nancy Pelosi. But Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell says he can't imagine a scenario where the Senate, Pat, would remove the president.
Well, I think that's exactly what's going to happen. It's an exercise in futility. It's nothing but a PR stunt, and it has been slanted in favor of the Democrats and in favor of impeachment. Adam Schiff has been running a rigged operation there. He only allows certain witnesses, will not allow certain questions, etc. But I think what Mitch McConnell said, there is no way the Senate is going to vote out the president on the strength of some of the stuff that's come out. So why are they wasting our time? And what's happening, you know, if they push this thing into January, that means those senators who are running for president will have to leave the campaign trail. They can't campaign in Iowa. They can't campaign in New Hampshire. They'll be pulled out of the game, and they don't want that. So I think there's going to be a hue and cry. Well, there's something else in the news. The former mayor from New York is going to say he's going to spend $100 million against President Trump. John has more.
That is right, Pat. To 2020, former New York City mayor says he is contemplating a run for president, but he's already taking on President Trump. Bloomberg is pouring in $100 million into an online advertising campaign attacking the president. The campaign will run in 4 battleground states: Arizona, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. One example of a new ad, a picture of the president's Twitter page with the caption, "A tweet shouldn't threaten our national security." Well, Chick-fil-A says it will no longer donate to organizations accused of anti-LGBTQ views and that oppose same-sex marriage. The company says instead of donating to groups like the Fellowship of Christian Athletes and the Salvation Army, it'll focus its giving on hunger, homelessness, and education. The move away from Christian organizations angered many conservatives, saying Chick-fil-A had betrayed its loyal customers. Former Arkansas Governor Mike Huckabee tweeted, "They surrendered to anti-Christian hate groups," and he also continued, Pat, "Tragic."
Truett Cathy was a friend of mine. I got to know him when he was just starting out. He said he wanted to take a little piece of white meat chicken and put it between 2 pieces of bread, and that's where he got the name Chick-fil-A. It was one fillet of a chicken, and it was a small company, but they stuck to the principle they weren't going to open on Sunday. They were to honor the Lord, and he was a wonderful man. He later was worth about $4 billion, so it was quite successful. And Chick-fil-A has had a marvelous success because they've honored the Lord. Now, I don't know who's running the country. I guess the son of Truett is, I thought Dan Cathy was in charge of things, but maybe not. But this shocks me, frankly, that they will not give money to the Salvation Army. They will not give money to the Fellowship of Christian Athletes. Because these groups believe in traditional marriage, and marriage is between a man and a woman, not between 2 men or 2 women. And because of that, they will withhold funds. It's a betrayal of what they have initially stood for, and I think it's going to blow up in their face. It'll be a terrible, terrible mistake, but I guess the original founding family isn't in charge like they were. John?
Pat, in other news, the United States is teaming up with a fellow NATO member for cyber warfare, the tiny Balkan country of Montenegro. The 2 nations are working together to come up with strategies to prevent potential Russian cyber attacks on elections in both countries next year. Elections have been just one of the key battlegrounds in cyber warfare. It can also be used against military organizations, major corporations, and, Pat, financial businesses.